because I didn't express myself or express the way I felt, or maybe I didn't even understand the way I felt. That was just me just processing that whole touring environment. It would build up inside of me to the point where I remember coming off a 2-month tour and just driving home, and it must have been like it's exactly 6 minutes away from home, because I know exactly where it started, just off the roundabout where it takes me to my house. And I just started just pouring down in a flood of tears, and I couldn't pinpoint it. I was like, where is this coming from? What is it? It should have been obvious, but it wasn't. I just couldn't understand why I'm crying so much. It felt like, when you're younger and your parents tell you off, and then you run into your room and you bury your head in the pillow and there's all snot coming out of the pillow. You're like, why am I? It was that kind of cry. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Lockie, how are you doing? Thank you very much for joining me today. How is everything?
Everything is blessed. Thank you for having me, man.
Now, looking forward to talking through a whole range of things, but I'm going to kick things off with a question that's become a bit of a staple with recent guests, and that is, in a sentence, who is Locksmith?
Locksmith. It's a hard one, because sometimes I try and figure that one out myself. But I like to think there's two sides of Locksmith. You've got Locksmith, who is one quarter of the Rudimental UK music band. On stage, he's the life of the party. Looking from the outside in, you probably think he is the life of the party, or he is the guy to go to if you want to have some fun. And he's really outgoing, he's really sociable, and all the above of what you'd expect from someone jumping around on stage, acting like a rock star. And then the second side of myself, I'll probably say that's the real side, and that's
Leon.
That's Leon. That's Leon Rolle, government name given by my mother. And that person is actually a massive recluse, someone who spends a lot of time with himself and his family. I love to train because it keeps me level-headed. And yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. If I'm honest, that is Locksmith. Two people in one. So I don't know what they call it when people sort of like act one way on stage and then in real life they're not. It's not a facade. What's the word they use? I don't know. Anyway,
we'll figure it. We'll figure it out. I'm sure it'll come to us in 45 minutes, and we'll just shout it out loud.
But that's me, and I keep myself to myself. I really struggle to socialise and leave my front door, and it sounds really weird because I travel the world for work. I tour numerous locations, seen some beautiful places, but never actually been to them, if that makes sense. Seen a lot of hotel rooms and airports and stages, but never really seen the beauty of the world. And I get terribly homesick. And that's where Leon comes in. And it's kind of weird because when the two personalities collide, it starts to get a bit mad.
It's fascinating, actually, because I think what you said there that is something I hadn't really considered is you've travelled the world, but you haven't seen it because you've seen it through someone else's eyes almost, haven't you? You've seen it through this second personality's eyes, and I think
definitely. Yeah, you got that essence of it, definitely. Whereas you're so clouded in the fact that you want to get home, because I get terribly homesick, that sometimes, and I always kick myself for it, I don't enjoy the moments at times. But when I'm on stage, it's fine, because that's a form of escapism for me, and a form of release. So I kind of lose myself in that. But then, otherwise I kind of just shut the door and I go to sleep and wake up in the next location.
Interesting. Where did that not split identity, but where did that dual identity really begin? Because football was a huge part of your life, music was a huge part of life from a very young age, wasn't it? But when do you feel that started to manifest itself into this Leon versus Locksmith conflict that you're always battling?
I think it happened from an early age, proper early age. I always found myself a bit different, a bit outspoken, and I wasn't, I hate the word normal, but I wasn't like the other kids in my classroom. And, you know, if I was to say something that, you know, they wouldn't agree with or act in a certain way, I was very charismatic. I would do funny shit. I would stand on tables and take my top off and scream and shout until the cows come home. I was just in my own world. I was in my own world, and I found that fun and enjoyable, and I didn't want to be like the next guy. And sometimes, you know, you felt like you was a bit misunderstood. Although sort of like in school I was always popular, and that was through my personality and through, you know, my talent for football or playing football. I didn't want to be popular. I didn't want to be that person. So I kind of just kept to myself. And alongside that came sort of like my OCD for football, which ran into everything else in my life. So I remember the first time that I got introduced into football was through my dad, who, funny enough, I didn't really get along with, as he wasn't really a father, he was more of a dad. But the first time I encountered football was with him. He took me to football. He had a football match, and I remember sitting in the car, and he had this lovely BMW 6 Series back then, and it was one of those BMWs that had a phone in it and whatnot, and he'd pick up the phone whilst driving, and he'd be talking to his teammates on the way there, and they'll be talking about all the bants that they got through on the weekend, and looking forward to the match, and like just bantering amongst each other. And I'll be in the seat like, oh my god, what's going on? What am I looking forward to? What's coming up? And then you'd get to the pitch, and it'd be all muddy. Like you'd take your first step and it'd be muddy, and I was just like, what is going on here? I was expecting like really big things. And then he would tell me to wait outside the change room, and I could just hear him laughing in the change room and cracking jokes and bantering along. And it was just intriguing to me. And then I got to sit in the stands and watch him play football. My dad didn't play at a high level. He's probably like semi-professional. But I watched him, and when I saw him play, it was just like he was like a gazelle. He was bow-footed, and he would just literally skip past players, and I was just amazed. And that's what I wanted to do. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be that guy on that pitch at some point. So when that was fixated in my head, I didn't let go of it, you know. And this was probably at 8 years old. And from the age of 8, I kind of literally just divulged into football. I would wake up an hour before school, and I would run to school, jump over the gates. The caretaker would be like, "Leon, is that you again?" I'd be like, "Yeah." I'll be doing kick-ups in the cage. It was by myself. And then, yeah, I would stay after school for another 2 hours until it was dark, really. And my mum would have to come find me, and I could hear her screaming my name from the end of the street, telling me to come home, that's enough. And then I'll do exactly the same thing every single day. And yeah, it was a passion, and yeah, I had a bit of OCD with it, and I just nothing else mattered. It was tunnel vision. And that kind of excluded myself from sort of like the socializing with your friends aspect, because I just wanted to do that one thing. And if they didn't want to do that, then I wasn't going to go out and throw stones at buses or Brussels sprouts or whatever it was, or eggs at buses that I sometimes did. But I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to go play football. And I think that's where it stemmed from. And I think because of me having a passion at that early age and knowing what I wanted to do, it kind of installed a bit of discipline into me, a sacrifice that I didn't know I was making at the time, and consistency. And it's hard when you pick up, some will say, a good habit like that, to break it. And I kind of took that into everything else that I did in my life. And I always knew that I was going to do something big, and I don't mean to sound cocky or, you know, arrogant, but I always knew that I was going to do something big because I just dedicated so much time into anything I put my head into. But yeah, to answer your question, me being a recluse, I was a recluse at 8 years old as well.
Do you feel you had to become someone else to chase these big, audacious goals that you had for yourself? The way you understood yourself as a recluse, as this quiet kid, do you feel like you had to project a different personality so that you could be successful and chase after those football goals or those bigger picture thinking goals you just mentioned?
I don't know. I think from the outside, it probably, like, especially from what I'm saying now, it may not make sense to people. They may be thinking, well, yeah, you obviously did because you got a different personality on stage and, you're not the same person when you're at home. But the person I'm on stage, you get that in, like, bits when I'm at home as well. Like, I'm the crazy guy when I'm at home,
Yeah.
I keep this ship sailing through my energy and my charismatic behavior. So I kind of think that you just know when to turn on that tap a lot more when it's the other side. And I think that's all I did, really. So when I got on stage or I got in front of a camera, I just turned that tap on to the level that was required of me. And then as soon as that camera was down or I was off stage, that tap will come off, like, dramatically, and I would just literally zone into my own place. So I don't think I did have to necessarily change, but just adapt how much I was given.
Well, we all have a dual identity in a sense, don't we, with a personal and professional lives? Because I don't know many people that are the exact same from a professional point of view as they are in their family life. I've got friends that act in certain ways around me and our mates that wouldn't dream of acting in certain ways around their work colleagues, for example. But it's fascinating that you're so aware of it and that you reflect on it in a way that is so black and white. There's almost two of you, but in a way that you understand, which I think is really important, because that's something that could quite easily become a serious identity crisis or spiral out of control, I'd imagine.
Mate, don't for 1 second believe that I've come to this conclusion overnight and I kind of clocked the game straight away. This has taken years to actually understand that this is what it is, this is who I am, and there's been sort of trials and tribulations which have taken me in all different directions within my life to get to this point of, yep, you know what, you're that person over there and you're this person over here. And I've always said, it's not about the destination, because the destination is forever going. It's about the journey, and I've had one hell of a ride to get to this point.
Yeah, I'd like to hear a bit more about that ride. I mean,
Totally.
the simple question, I think, is what is the Rudimental story? Where did it all begin? I know you've known each other for years and years and years, but
yeah.
How did it go from being four lads kicking about Hackney to what it is now, which has been an incredible career, and as you've said, a life worth living?
No, yeah, definitely. It's been a bonkers journey. Every time I sort of have to talk about it, or I start thinking about it, I'm just like, you know what, it's crazy. There's going to be elements to kind of the story where you're going to be like, oh, well, that's lucky. I never ever liked the word lucky. I always try to think that I always made my own luck.
You create your own luck, don't you? The harder you work, the more luck finds you, is the way I look at it. You don't just fall into things.
That is my motto of life, It's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, from an early age, grew up in Hackney. There was three of us out of the four in the band who knew each other since we were like 5 years old. Grew up in Hackney, knew each other from infants. And we shared the same interests, and that was football and music. Now, outside of the Rudimental boys, there's probably another 8 of us that have stuck around each other from the age of 5 to now. But yeah, Kezi and Pears, we lived more or less on the same street. Kezi a little bit further away, probably a bus stop ride away, or a 10-minute walk away, whatever it was. And yeah, we grew up playing football some of us played in the same teams as each other, chasing the same girls, you know, like just making the same trouble. All the kind of things you do as a teenager, that's what we did. And I always wanted to pursue football, but music was running alongside it, parallel to football. Football, you got like a 99.9% statistics that says that you won't make it. 0.01% get through their academy and hopefully go on to have a professional footballing career. So it's very slim, you know. And I knew that, but I always wanted to pursue it anyway because it was a passion more than anything. So whilst I was in an academy at Arsenal, funny enough, football was running parallel. My mum bought me my first pair of turntables when I was about 12 years old, and I begged her and begged her. My birthday falls on Christmas Day, and yeah,
pros and cons.
Not so lucky
pros
me.
And cons.
Definitely more cons than pros, I'll tell you that much. There's nothing worse than seeing people celebrate on your day.
No, I get that.
It's not about you.
Everyone's distracted from the real purpose of the day for you, isn't it?
Exactly. It's my day. You know, it's weird because I don't understand birthdays, and people don't really understand that. It's just one of those things that I really don't understand it, because I remember when I went to a friend's house when I was really, really young, and I was asked, and it was his birthday, and I was asking him, mate, like, am I going to get a present too? Like, do I get a present on your day as well? And
I never thought about that. That must have been hard actually from a processing point of view as a kid.
No, as a kid it's just like, wait, everyone's getting presents on my day, but when it's their day I don't get nothing. And so even now when sort of like I forget close family members' birthdays, I'm just like, it's just a birthday, get over it. But it's not. I know it's not. It's the day he was born. I get it. I know it's deep and it should be something that's celebrated, but it's kind of me just being mean in my head, being screwed. But yeah, birthday falling on Christmas Day, and I remember asking my mum, or begging her basically, can I get these pair of turntables? And these turntables were the best turntables you could have. Like, I had no right at 12 years old to have a pair of Technique 1210s. You would find them in any radio station, any club, bar. They were top of the range at the time, and those were the ones I wanted. I think they cost nearly like £1,000 a turntable kind of thing at the time. And my mum said, no, there's no chance you're going to get that. And I remember Christmas coming, opening up my presents and whatnot, and they weren't there. I was just hoping that she would have pulled it out of the bag somehow, and they weren't there under the tree. So I was up there trying to hold in tears or whatever, because, you know, you're young and you really want something. It was my one chance to be spoilt, and I wasn't going to be spoilt. But I said, oh, thanks for everything, Mum. Tried to keep it humble. Walked downstairs into my bedroom, and lo and behold, the decks were there. And I was just like blown away. And with vinyl turntables, at the time, they were extremely expensive to acquire records. And to get a record, it's just extremely expensive.
Yeah. It's still quite an expensive hobby, I think.
No,
isn't it?
yeah, it's just now. Like, it's kind of gone full circle, isn't it? It's gone back to what it was. I remember paying £7 for a song.
Yeah.
You know, could you imagine doing that now? No one would pay £7 for a song unless you're a turntable enthusiast, or vinyl enthusiast. And I remember spending all my dinner money on sort of like vinyls. So I would get like 20 quid a week, and that 20 quid would be gone at the top of the week. And I would have no lunch money whatsoever. And I'd be packing a packed lunch from anything that was left over in the fridge. But I'd probably buy like two records if I was lucky, and I would come home. And I remember for a good couple of weeks I was just mixing in my mum's records and just scratching the life out of them, like her old Anita Baker or Marvin Gaye, even Michael Jackson records. And she would be fuming. I remember that look on her face. It almost gives me like shivers now. She'd be fuming. She was like, I bought you these and now you're destroying my vinyls. But I don't have them. I don't have my own. She's like, well, you better get your own. So it took me a really long time to build up a collection of songs to play, you know, to have a little variety of music to play. But with that said, that period where I didn't have that many vinyls and I had my mum's vinyls, allowed me to dig deep into history of records and music, you know. Like, I remember playing a Drifters track. Like, Drifters was a whole old school sort of slash Motown type band. Although I don't believe they were signed to Motown. But yeah, they were just like a really cool soul band. And that's where all the soul comes from when I make music. It comes from me taking my mum's records and just mixing those for hours on end. So that was sort of like one process of where that sort of style and sound of Rudimental comes from. So yeah, I did that for a long time, and whilst I was doing that with sort of like mixing and whatnot, I was trying to get on pirate radio. We were trying to get on pirate radio stations so that we could use that as a platform to play our own music on there as well. So as I got my turntables, we started getting a music software program to start.
What age was this? You were still a teenager?
This was about 12, 13.
Which is, I mean, the drive and the community that you've already got is insane, isn't it?
This is what I'm saying. It's scary.
You create your own luck. There it is again. That's what an example. I don't know many 12 or 13-year-olds getting after it like that for anything that they're passionate about. Because it's scary as well, which is easy to forget.
Yeah, no, it totally is, you know, to sort of jump out your comfort zone. I think the one or the biggest fear that everyone has is the fear of failing, you know. And I never had that. I've never had that. If I fail, all right, I'll put it down and I'll try again, because that's just a way that I've learned to not do it. Yes, about 12, 13, we were lucky because Piers, one of the members of Rudimental, he lived a stone throw from me, so I would walk to his house, and his dad was heavily into music, and he used to play guitar, and he used to like to make his own music. So he's built a studio within the house, and whenever he wasn't in there, we were in there, and we were just messing around with buttons and seeing what worked, and we were working with so many DAWs digital audio workstations programs on the computer to make music, until our eyes was just sort of like bleeding at the screen, and until we figured out, all right, that's how you do drum patterns, or that's how you pull out a synth plugin, or whatever it was. And we were doing that from that age. And although we carried on doing that and we carried on looking for radio stations and our ambitions were very high, it didn't come until our our early adult years of 18. So if you could imagine, from about 12 to 18, we were just grinding away, trying to get noticed some way, somehow. We were making our own songs and taking the CDs and going to sort of like a vinyl factory and pressing up our own vinyls and trying to get it sent out to people at the age of like 13, 14 years old. And we managed to do that with one of our songs. In fact, it was one of Piers' songs, and it was a grime track, and I hated grime. That's why I never got involved in it. But the whole process I was involved in heavily, and him taking that and getting it pressed, and he must have pressed like 100 vinyls we saved up for it, and he got Wiley to spin it on radio, and we were just blown away. We were like, oh, that's how it works. All you got to do is just get it to someone, and we heard the song on radio. We was like, oh my god, that's our song. And we just, you know, you're at the tape machine trying to record it, record it, you rewind it, listen back to it, listen back to it for hours on end. And I think it's those little moments, those little nuggets that kind of just fueled our drive a little bit more, because no matter how much drive you have within yourself, you're going to have them moments when you're like, oh, this ain't working. And you just need something to just give you a bit of a fuel injection pump, just like to say, yes, you're on the right track, keep going.
And the more of them you get, the more that stacks up over time as well.
Exactly, and it just fills you with so much drive and like joy and happiness.
I'm just sitting here with, for those listening rather than watching. I'm just sitting here with such a big smile on my face because it's just it's the most beautiful, simple example of the power of the community, the power of friendship, the power of shared passion, and actually just sticking at it. And even when it seems tough and fighting through those, you were young teenagers and you were just doing what you love. And here you are, having had an incredible career, having an incredible career that isn't over yet, friends for life, and all you did was do what you wanted to do rather than let society tell you this is the thing that you should be doing. Which it's amazing. I think it's inspiring in so many ways because it gives you that faith, doesn't it? As we've said, you make your own luck if you just believe in yourself and just don't let any of those knockbacks tell you that you're not gonna go to where you want to go. Keep fighting through it, and here we are. Look at you now. That's it.
Mate, I don't even like saying "look at me now." But yeah, no, totally, because at the end of the day, it's taken us near enough 2 decades to get to this point. People will be like, "Nah, it didn't." The truth is, I
bet you'd still be doing it anyway, even if you hadn't made it.
And this is the thing, we look at football. I didn't make it as a professional footballer, but I only stopped playing semi-professional football 3 years ago, just before lockdown, the first lockdown, if you like. And that was for Braintree Town Football Club.
Yep.
And I used to change around my flights when I was in the arse end of nowhere in Europe, just to make it back to training. And the boys would look at me and say, "What the fuck are you doing here? Running, doing road runs in Essex with us?" And I'm like, it's not just that. I love football. And it's not just playing a match, because I didn't even get a match. I just did training times, and I used to warm up before matches because it was unfair me, coming in, and the rest of the boys, this is a career to them, stepping stone for them, and I didn't want to take that away from them. Although I like to think that I got the ability to, but I didn't want to come in and feel like, oh, here comes this rock star, just a PR stunt or whatnot. I would always join up with an old manager that I had from when I was younger and I used to play for, and he knew the pedigree, he knew what I was about. And I just liked the fact that I was around the boys, we were a team, I could look to the left and right of me, and I knew that they would have my back. And if they didn't have my back, then I'll pull them by the scruff of the neck and we'll get to it. And that's what I loved, and that's what I love being a part of. Luckily enough, I'm part of a band that we have that, but you kind of don't have that competitive side of it, which I think like all males desire, women as well desire, so yeah, it was I would definitely still be doing it. I still do it now. I still play Sunday football with the rest of the Rudimental boys now to this day. And like I said, we've been in Ibiza and we've said, right lads, we've got a cup final for our Sunday league team. Are we going to go in Ibiza, or are we going to keep it stum so we can get back and win the cup final and then have a celebration then? Change our flights around, leave early, get there, and then we win the cup final. And that's what we love doing. And I think that kind of humbleness and rooted to the ground vibe comes from us knowing each other for such a long time, because there has been times when we've stared off to the left and we've needed each other to pull each other back,
100%, 100%. And one of the questions I've got actually is, you've been friends for so long, your career is sort of intertwined with one another in many ways in terms of the actual band itself, and it's a challenging existence, mentally, psychologically, physically. I mean, you're on the road all the time, and something that I'm a huge proponent of is having a reliable support network and making sure that they're A, able to listen, and B, you're able to feel comfortable to reach out to them. And at the peak of touring, the peak of the stresses of the job, did you always feel like you could turn to the guy next to you and say, look, this is getting a bit much for me, I'm feeling a bit worn out? Could you rely on one another? Do you think that's why you've been able to go so far, because you had that close network?
Yes, definitely. I feel like you wholeheartedly trust your brothers. You spend more time with them than you do your family. So yeah, definitely that trust there. That was never a problem. The problem was actually expressing how you felt. For me,
Was that
that was
just
the
for you, or
hardest.
for all of you? Do you think?
Possibly for all of us, but yeah, possibly for all of us. And I think when you're part of a band for so long, if you stop growing with each other, then I feel like you need to call it a day, you know. And we have been constantly learning from each other from day dot. Like, take an example just from last week of us in a really intense business meeting talking about the future and whatnot. And we're laughing and we're cracking jokes in there and we're getting through it, together. And you're kind of, at this point in our career, you're kind of asking each other, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do? And then some of us will come out and say, well, we don't really want to do that anymore, but yeah, we might want to do this. And everyone's listening to each other. Everyone's having that conversation. Everyone's been allowed their time to talk. And ultimately, there are times where, people play devil's advocate, but what if, and allow you to open up your mind and whatnot. But if I was to talk to you about sort of like some of the stuff that's happened in the past, I struggled touring from day dot, and they knew that, and it really gets to me. And I get on a plane. Well, we start off from home. Like, if we start off from home, I'm at home. I don't look at my diary because I hate looking at my diary because it basically tells me that I'm going to have to leave real soon. So my tour manager will call me up the day before and say, right, we've got a gig in France and that's going to start off the tour or whatever. Do you want a car to the airport or do you want to drive yourself? And I'll be like, I'll drive myself, I'll drive myself to the airport. I'll get to the airport, all the boys will look at me and they'll instantly say to me, we'll come find you when the gate's ready. Not, are you going to come sit with us and have a chat with the rest of the band outside of us four? They're like, we'll come find you, because they know that I'm going to drift off and I'm going to sit down by myself with my headphones on, hood up, and just get in my zone because it's work time now for me. We'll get on the plane, get to our location where a tour bus will be waiting for us. I'll be probably sleep on my bunk, close the blinds. Tour manager will be like, Leon, sound check. Go to sound check, come back on my tour bunk, close the blinds. Leon, an hour to show, open up the blinds, go do the show, have something to eat, close the blinds, go sleep, end up in Germany the next day. And that wasn't a great way of working, but it was just a way of me dealing with being away. And over time, because I didn't express myself or express the way I felt, or maybe I didn't even understand the way I felt, that was just me just processing that whole touring environment, it will build up inside of me to the point where I remember coming off a 2-month tour and just driving home, and it must have been like it's exactly 6 minutes away from home, because I know exactly where it started, just off the roundabout where it takes me to my house. And I just started just pouring down in a flood of tears, and I couldn't pinpoint it. I was like, where is this coming from? What is it? It should have been obvious, but it wasn't. I just couldn't understand why I'm crying so much. It felt like, when you're younger and your parents tell you off, and then you run into your room and you bury your head in the pillow and there's all snot coming out of the pillow. You're like, why is it? It was that kind of cry. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And then I'll get to the next roundabout, which will mean that it's another 3 minutes to get home. And I'm literally still going. I'm still going, like, to the point where I need windscreen wipers on my eyes right now because I can't even see where I'm driving. Get to my drive, and I sat in my car for another 4 minutes. Now, the reason why I'm listing the times is because that's 10 minutes. Who the fuck cries for like 10 minutes solid? And just at it. There must be people out there, obviously, but I've just never experienced that kind of outlet before. And I kind of managed to fix myself up because, you know, I didn't want my kid to see me like that. I didn't want my missus to see me like that, because in my head, you know, I'm the root of this family, you know, so I'm meant to be that strong man that kind of keeps us afloat. Walked in, my missus was like, "Why's your eyes red? Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine, it's all good." And I literally just snapped out of it. I just forgot that. And I never ever looked back at I did look back at it, but at the time I didn't look back at it as if to say that was an
put it
issue.
to bed, put it to the side.
I just put it to the side. I was like, that's not a problem. You know, it's just whatever, innit? And I remember the missus and the little one, they went out. I think they might have stayed over at her sister's or whatnot, and I was left in the house by myself. And I heard a knock on the door. I was like, who the fuck's knocking on my door? No one comes to my house, you know. You've got to get through a gate before you can get to my house. How have you bloody got through and knocking on the door? So like, who the hell is this? And I opened it up, and it was Kezi, a member of the band, and a mate of ours called Mikey, who, if you remember, I told you earlier, our tight-knitted friends that we knew from when we was 5, one of them, he was there. I was like, what are you lot doing there? And he was like, we're here for you, man. Like, I hadn't spoken to them about anything, you know, any issues that I might have had, any issues that I had buried, but they were at the front door, out of nowhere. I was like, what are you lot doing there? So we ended up, got a couple beers, sitting on the sofa, watching a bit of TV, and they asked me, like, so what's been going on? And I was like, nothing, man, I'm cool, I'm fine. And we ended up watching the TV. They were like, all right, cool, well, we're here anyway. Watching TV, and then it happened again. I literally just burst into tears again. Exactly the same way. Sorry.
No, not at all, man. It's a powerful thing.
Exactly the same way that I did when I was driving. That 6-minute drive, 4 minutes on my driveway, and they were like, we have seen everything. We have seen the way you act on stage. Because I do this thing where I say something to the crowd, I show all the energy and the positive energy to the crowd, and then I turn back to my bandmates, and it's almost like my face kind of drops. And they said that's what you've been doing, and it almost like looks like like something has just been drawn from you when you look back at us, and then all of a sudden you're like this crazy man on stage again. Like you're there for the crowd again. And when you're off stage, you're just in your own world, and we're speaking to you, and it's almost like you're not hearing us, and you're not with us. And we just want to make sure that you're okay, and that, you know, we're here if you ever need to talk to us. And I just started reeling off all the things that was bothering me. And I said, like, touring is just extremely hard for me. And because I'm such a team player, like, of every football club I played for, I've been captain, you know. I've always taken it upon myself to help the person next to me, fight for the person next to me, you know. I'm a big believer in humans, although we're pretty fucked up most of the time. You know, I'm that kind of person, and I felt like I was letting the team down if I said or expressed the way I was feeling, you know. And they said not at all, and we just had that conversation back to back, you know. And that goes down to your point about, do you feel like you can trust the people around you? Is that bond there? Well, that was never in question. The problem is how much am I willing to give them in order for them to utilize that trust.
No, I completely get that. And first of all, thank you for sharing that, because that was one, fascinating to hear the similarities that I've felt myself personally, but two, amazing to hear that your friends were, and colleagues in fact, were that switched on to be able to actually see it within you, which just goes to show. I wore a mask before that became the thing that we all do. I wore a mask for almost 2 years to repress my feelings, not just from people around me, as you said, but from myself, because I failed to understand how I was feeling, and it seemed that you were in a very similar boat. And the thing that got me over the hump was that conversation where I just started reeling. And then once it was out of my mouth, only then could I start to process it inside my own head.
Yeah.
And I had the exact same feelings. Oh, I've got to be the root of this. I've got to be the root of that. I've got to support those around me. I'll be letting the side down if I expose myself as feeling that way. And I think the key question I've got for you now is, having had that experience and having had that conversation, would you open up to them the second you started feeling like that now, or do you still feel like it's a tough conversation to have?
Yeah, I don't want to pretend like after that moment it was like a eureka moment, and every time after that I was able to just reel it off just like that. And I'm going to say no, it's tough. That was the beginning of me, learning a new skill in order to open up about myself, or expressing how I felt. But there is still hard work that needs to be done. Now, for me, the difference from then to now is that I'm willing to do that hard work. I understand what that hard work is and how I have to go about it. Whereas I didn't have a clue that hard work needed even to be done. You know what I mean? Like, there was times when I would feel that way. I would wake up in the morning, do a 10k run with a 10 kg weighted vest on, and it wouldn't even hurt. It wouldn't even hurt. And I was just so numb that I was like, right, I need to do something else then. All right, cool. We'll go do another circuit in the gym. We'll bury it that way. To the point of exhaustion, I would just literally bury myself under that, But now I know that I can't go that way with it, because the balance becomes uneven. You push yourself into that, you get lost into that, and you start thinking to yourself, you know what, it's fine, just have a stupid, horrible workout and it will sort itself out, it'll take my mind off it. But as soon as you come out of that workout, it just starts seeping back in again.
It's just a disguise for the feelings rather than a solution, isn't it? It's just a way of pushing them to the side until you have to deal with them again, which isn't an effective strategy long term.
You're plastering up the cracks, and the cracks are underneath and they're going to reappear again. So for me, it's still tough, but I'm willing to do the work, and it will come out, and I think that's the most important thing. I
think you've almost summarised where I feel. I mean, this is just one man's opinion, one man who's had an experience that was negative with his own mental health. It doesn't make me in any way qualified to comment on society, but the way I see it is that the big misunderstanding at this point now is that people don't consider that mental health is a sliding scale in the same way that our physical health is a sliding scale.
Yeah.
If you eat nutritious food, if you exercise daily, if you make sure that you can move within your means as consistently as you can, you will be on the healthy side of the physical scale. In the same way that if you are doing things that you enjoy, if you're spending time with the people you care about, you enjoy your job, you're getting outside, you'll be on the healthy side of the mental scale. Whereas the inverse is the same. If you're not exercising, you're eating bad food, you'll be on the unhealthy side. If you're not having conversations, if you're bottling up feelings, if you don't like your job, if you're not feeling fulfilled, you might be on the unhealthy side. Whereas I think the understanding in society at the moment is that we either have a battle with mental health or we're fine. Whereas there's no prevention rather than cure. There's no proactive consideration on the things that we should be doing daily to make us feel mentally healthy in the same way we would physically healthy, if that makes sense. And I think what you described there is kind of a similar, not eureka moment, but a similar understanding that you have now, in the sense that there's more you can do now to do that hard work which will make it easier for you down the line.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I think on that note, something I'm interested to discuss is what looked like a brutal experience, which was your time on SAS Who Dares Wins. As you came away the winner as well, so a brutal experience, but one you came out with a smile on your face on. But what I mean, I know I've got friends that have operated in the Special Forces, and what they look for in selection is potential. They look for the potential in a person long term, and they see that in who they are when they turn up. They're not looking for the finished article. I've had Gaz Bamford on the podcast, who's used to manage recruitment for the Special Boat Service, and he's said that himself. But they strip you back to build you up.
Totally.
And what I'm very fascinated to hear from you is, what did you learn about yourself when they stripped you back?
It's a tough one because I learned so much. One of the things that I did learn, and it was out there quite evidently, but I kind of just chose to ignore it, was that relationship with my father, and how much that relationship kind of suppressed my internal growth. I kind of had a chip on my shoulder for me not making it as a professional footballer, and that was down to him not being a father, not being the father that I needed. And there were so many times within that show where, when they did strip you back, when they made you feel like you had nothing left, his fucking head would pop up in my head, my father's head, every time. And I just started to build this character that he's actually screaming at me, telling me, stay down, you're not going to make it, there's no point going on. And I would literally have this battle with this man that wasn't even there in my head. So when I was like crawling through the mud, or, you know, underwater and whatnot, that battle between me and him was pushing me up further and further. And they took me out within 2 days, and they put me in a room, and they didn't record it. They just literally didn't grill me. They said, what is stopping you right now? I said, nothing. I'm just trying to get through this as best as I can. And then Ant said to me, there is something stopping you right now from being the best that you could possibly be. Like, from the way you talk, you humble down your success as if to say it's irrelevant, which I've done for years. I've always, all right, won a Brit Award, all right, that go over there, what's the next thing? I've never ever really run around the house, here's a Brit Award, or expressed it to people, look how successful we are. Not that that's what he was saying, but he was saying, you don't even give it an acknowledgement of how successful you are. So what is stopping you from doing that? Because that is going to be your biggest hindrance here from going on and pushing even further. And I said, I just come out and I said, look, that battle I have with my dad in my head, literally, he's literally sitting on me, telling me not to get up and not to push further. And he basically said, you need to let that go, cut a long story short. So I started trying to figure out ways of getting this fucker out of my head when I was in the deepest and darkest moments. So that was one element, because when I came out of that, I reconnected with him, and we spoke, and it's not all plain sailing. You know, I haven't spoken to him in months, but the fact that I went out and I contacted him and I expressed how I felt, and how he made me feel from such a young age of not being there. Like, it wasn't even the character of the man, because I don't even know what the character of the man is. It was just the fact that he wasn't there. And that was a big issue for me going into the show, but that's something that I learned about myself and something that I had to deal with within myself. The second thing was the whole social side of it. I fucking hate reality TV with a passion. Like, the missus will watch it, and she's roping our 11-year-old son into it, and I'm just like, fuck's sake, turn the channel. I can't stand it. However, this show didn't have that stigma attached to it like other reality shows, and I thought it was more credible, hence why I did it. And the reason why I did do it as well is because I said to myself, if I'm not going to become a professional footballer at the age of 17, I'm going to join the army. And I remember at college signing all the forms and whatnot, and I was ready to send it off and I was going to go. I wanted to go because, one, my passion wasn't working here. Two, I wanted to be a part of a team, and I felt that, you know, I was fit enough at the time to do it. But then I ended up falling in love, and we ended up having 2 kids to each other so I've been with the same woman since I was 17. So yeah, the second thing was the social element of it. And the first couple of days, literally I treated it like I was on tour for Rudimental. They'll wake me up, do a task, go back to my bunk, go sleep. I don't know if you saw the show. I know they chop it up and they make it look the way they want it to look, but the way I was, where I was quiet and not doing nothing, was exactly how I was for the first 2 days. I didn't open up to anyone. I didn't really show anyone my true colours. I felt myself, but it wasn't the Locksmith. I wasn't giving them Locksmith. I actually gave them Leon, the recluse side of it, which was actually quite bizarre because I thought Locksmith would come out in this situation, but he didn't for that first couple of days. But then as time progressed, like, you actually can't be that way if you want to progress on this show. You know, you need the help of your teammates. The teammates need your help. And I'm not just talking about picking up a log and carrying it 5k. I'm talking about when they're down. You know, this is where that team element, that leader quality that I have within myself, you know, it had to come out. So they had to not only see Locksmith, they had to see Leon. They had to see everything about yourself. And when you get stripped back like that, that's all you're left with at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? To rely on. Because they're not going to help you, the DSs. You would hope your teammates got your back, but ultimately they can't carry you. So you've got to dig deep for yourself. And that social element was hard for me because, like I said, I'm not really a sociable person, but I managed to become one through that experience. And I was fortunate enough to have some really good recruits on there with me, from the likes of Tony, who, like, there ain't a day that goes by without us talking to each other now. So like he's by far a friend for life, you know. And you've got Lauren Stedman, and all the rest of them, which we all keep in contact now. But at the time, they were a really good bunch to be around. And that kind of made me think that outside of this, I need to be more sociable, because there's an opportunity to, you know, learn something new, you know. I'm not fussed about making friends, but if you make friends along the way, then, you know, it's a bonus.
So as you've said, the destination's always changing. It's the journey that matters.
Exactly that. But what a fucking ride SAS is, man. Like, as soon as I came off it and they told us that we had won, it was so funny because when they sort of like take off your balaclava or whatever it is they got on you, you're just waiting for the next thing for them to tell you to do. So they could have told me to jump off a cliff. I probably would have done it because I was just that zoned in. I had spent 36 hours up. 12 of those 36 hours was through sort of like the interrogation process, being in stress positions and listening to babies cry in your ears. So when it came to the end, and I didn't know that, like, I was like last man standing, I was ready to just keep going. And that was all the mind just telling me, yeah, just keep going. And it wasn't, the body was finished, the body was fucked. But the mind just kept telling me to go. And then when they announced it, you have passed, I was like, you what? Like, it was, I look back at it, I'm like, this is the worst celebration of winning any show whatsoever. I look back at it, huh? Really? Because I'm actually ready to go again.
Well, yeah, by that point, I'd imagine you over the hump, as it were, whereby they could have
Yeah,
kept throwing stuff at you, and it's as you've said, you'd outlasted your body, and once you do that,
yeah, totally.
you're limitless to a
This is
point.
it.
Which I think is
This is it.
why. I mean, the thing that's very apparent from your social media is it's a mindset and an approach that you want to manifest into your day-to-day life and try and bring others on that journey with you. And I can sense from your career, the way you've interacted with people and that social learning that you went through, that community is something that's very important to you. And I think
Massively.
you've got an incredible online community of people coming on this journey with you now. So the final thing I want to cover is you've already mentioned it here, but from a football point of view, from a constantly fighting against that 0.1% trying to make it, because I mean, music statistics must be very similar.
Yeah,
What would
for
be
real.
your takeaway for somebody who might not feel that they can deal with rejection as well as you've always been able to? What would your advice be to them so that they can have that self-belief and that faith that's carried you so far?
Um, I feel like you have to be stubborn to your goals. You know, if there's something you want to do, you have to wholeheartedly believe that, regardless of what someone says, obviously within reason, you've got to listen, but whatever's thrown at you, be stubborn to what you believe and keep pursuing that. And I remember telling you guys, or telling the audience that are listening, telling you that we struggled to get on pirate radio station from 18 until we was like 18, and then we finally got on there. Pirate radio station, once you get there, it's nothing. You're in a room with mattresses on the wall. There's still a lot more to get through, you know. And it wasn't only until we was like 24 where I said to myself, I need to quit my job, go to uni and finish off my degree with £100 in my account. We got picked up. Our song got picked up, Feel the Love, which we did with John Newman, who we found in a pub doing an acoustic session of a song that we had written 2 years prior and gone crazy to in our shitty little studio that we had acquired in North London. It wasn't until then that we started this journey, and that was only 10 years ago. So resilience, in my eyes, has always been there. It's about taking the knocks and taking the rejections, the heartbreaking rejections that literally feel like your heart's breaking in two. And you take them and you've got to sew them back together with that stubbornness of knowing that, you know, something good is going to come of what I believe. And, you know, we all had that dream of playing on Glastonbury, or, you know, getting that Brit Award, getting those platinum records and whatnot. When they come, what do you do when they come? You almost say, all right, that was great. Where's the next one? So you look for the next one. And then the next one comes. What do? You look for the next one. It's a never-ending cycle. So if you get in your head that it's not about that destination of becoming a multi-platinum selling artist, it's about what you learn across it. So if we didn't make it, I would have been well equipped to get into something else because of all the lessons and the trials and tribulations that I experienced along the way. And I think that's where people sort of go wrong, because they see that success and that's what they want, whereas the success is probably just a facade. I actually hate the word success. It's just down to interpretation, isn't it? But for me, it's that journey along the way. Like I said, I had £100 left in my bank account. I was waiting on that next student loan to see if I could get through. My son had been born, you know. We were living in a 1-bedroom flat in the worst estate in Hackney called Pembury Estate, you know. So I always knew that I was going to get to this point, and I stayed stubborn to that thought process. And I always say the same thing with a workout that I might do, a new workout that I know I'm going to be incredibly slow with, or I'm not going to do it in record-breaking time, I say to myself, fuck it. If I don't break records there, I'm going to complete it.
And you're
like, no matter what it
better
takes.
off for having done so.
Exactly. And that's exactly my mindset. And that's what I stay stubborn to. I'm the most stubbornest person ever. But I listen. And I can be open-minded. You have to prove me wrong, you know? And I've always gone about my life that way. And I always mention my missus, but my missus gets so annoyed with it because I'll come in and I'll say something and then she'll be like, well, that ain't right. I was like, well, why ain't it right then? Like, you've got to prove me right. And then I'm constantly throwing sort of like devil's advocate sort of like bonus points at her. And she's like, just fucking leave me alone. So I'm like, no, think about it. Prove me wrong. You know? But yeah, I think just stay as stubborn to your goals as you possibly can, you know? There's so many artists that are out there that have conformed to what society, what record labels, what the mainstream would consider to be the right way of becoming an artist. And ultimately, if you conform to that, when that style or when that way of becoming an artist fails, or not fails, or it becomes unpopular, you're going to become unpopular with it. So then at the end of the day, you know, be stubborn to what you believe in and live and die by that. Especially in this field, you know. I don't know about sort of like everyday life and everyday work, because sometimes you've got to answer to the man in some cases, but within sort of like a creative aspect or a creative field, I stand by that.
Be yourself. Be yourself.
Yeah,
I think that can definitely apply to day-to-day life in more ways than one. But that's up to the individual to make of it what they will, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, on that note, Lockie / Leon, thank you very much. Really enjoyed that. I could have gone on for hours. So much fascinating stuff in there, and I really appreciate your time.
Man.
Thanks for the conversation.
Thanks for having me, man. It was a pleasure. It's always good to talk.
Agreed.